Hello there, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to see how to deploy the ABP Framework .NET Core tired app to the Docker Swarm. So we will containerize the app and then deploy it to a Docker Swarm instance. In this case, we are going to just deploy the empty app. We are not going to do any development on it. It's going to be just creating an app and trying to Dockerize it and then running it in Docker Swarm. For that, I already wrote a blog post as always, so you can go and check it out. First, I have to show Docker ls, Docker ps. I have a bunch of things running here, and Docker service.ls. So my local Docker desktop is running in a swarm mode. So to initialize swarm mode, you can just go to Docker's, you can type Docker swarm init. So this will initialize the swarm mode, and then you can deploy Docker compose files as a, you can deploy Docker compose files as a stack. So what we are going to do is we will create a tired application with MEC UI, and we will use Postgres as a database. I already created the database in my local machine. It's running in, the name is ABP Docker, the same as the app name. And we are going to first create the app, set up all the configuration, and then Dockerize it. Okay, first is to create the app. So we will copy this and then paste it. Okay, the app is ready. If you come here, you will see it. I will open it with Visual Studio Preview. Okay, so the first thing to do here is to update the connection string, because the default connection string and my current Postgres connection string are different. I will open the app.json, and it is running in localhost. It is running in the correct port, but the name is not root. The name is Postgres, and the password is also Postgres. So this is my local connection string. I will also update the connection string in the host and also in the identity server. Okay, now we have to run the migrations. So let's run the migrations. The migrations are launching. Since it's the first run, it might take a couple of minutes, depending upon how busy your system is. Yes, mine just started. Okay, the seeding has started. Perfect, we are done with the migrations. So to check whether everything works fine, let's go and check the database, whether yes, everything is created. Let's go and check the users. User is there. And let's launch the identity server and then see if we can log in. If we can log into the identity server, probably everything works fine. Okay, let's try to log in. Perfect. That works. Now let's move on to the next step. So the first step is to create the same site cookie extension. This is a community article written by the core team member of ABP on fixing the problem with Identity Server 4 and Chrome cookies. I have copied the code and then I made it available in the blog post itself. You can just copy the code directly from here. So first is to go to the domain that shared, and I will create a folder called extension. And inside that extension, we are going to create a class for the cookie extension. And we will copy the class from the blog post and paste it here. So let's fix the usings. And it takes a while to install the package. Okay, everything is fixed for the using. Now, next is to apply this in the configure services method. So when I in all the three projects, so the three projects are these three web projects which we will deploy. So the first is to go to the configure services method and then add same site cookies. So that is usually available in the host module, and we can put it here. It's the same for the identity server module and the web module. The next step is to use the cookies on application initialized. So we will go to the bottom, make sure it's above use authentication. There's a comment here, and we have to do, wait, we didn't. And also in the HTTP. Okay, so the cookie policy is fixed. Next is to add new client for the production. So in the new client, you have to check what the root URL is. The root URL is host.docker.internal. So this is the domain which is used by the Docker desktop to access the local network in the local machine, which is what I'm using right now. So we will be running the Docker in the Docker machine, and then we will be accessing through host.docker.internal, and we are going to expose the port 9005. So that is what we use as a root URL. So first step is to add this new client to the DB migrator app.json, because that's where all the identity server clients are configured. Let's go there. I will close this DB migrator app.settings.json, and then add it here. Now go to the domain project and then find the identity server seed contrib. So here in the domain project, there is the identity server seed contrib. So here you will see the web client. We are going to do something similar here. So I copied and pasted that and then created a new configuration for the Docker client. So basically it's a copy except the configuration section changes. So once we did that, we have to run the migrator again to seed the new client we created. So wait for the DB migration to run. Because the DB migrator seeds the data for us, and we just added a new entry to seed. To confirm whether the things are properly seeded, come and check whether the client is available. Yes, we have a client ID, new client ID available. So the DB migrator is properly worked. So the next step is to create the production config. So I will create a production.config.json. Before that, we can just go through the production config we created for each project. So again, the host.docker.internal, we are going to replace all the local hosts with host.docker.internal. It will be whatever the database host you have when you are actually releasing it on production, and this will be the actual URL for the Redis, and this will be the URL for the auth server. So since we are actually hosting everything locally, I'm just using host.docker.internal. And if you look at this, I'm not using HTTPS, I'm running it locally, so I'm just using HTTP. So I made sure the required HTTPS metadata is false. Yeah, so I just made changes in the connection string and also in the configuration to support the local environment. So when you are deploying, you just change these things with your database connection string or your Redis connection string or your auth server. So first we have to create the JSON file. So first you can actually come here and you will see a development file. Just copy and paste it and come here and then copy and you can rename it. Once you renamed it, you can copy it and then put it in all the other two projects as well. So now we have app settings.production here, app settings.production in all the 3 deployable projects, and it's empty. So first let's do the host project. So http api.host, just copy this and paste it. For identity server, copy this and paste here. And for web server, you do the same. Okay, now our production configs are done. So if you are checking the web project, it has the entire app URL. This is the app URL. This is the API URL, and this is the identity server URL. So we are going to use port 9005 for the web, and port 9007 for the API, and port 9006 for the identity server. And it's going to be the same host.docker.internal. And we are going to use the client ID, which we actually registered recently now. First, let's build this project and see if we miss anything. I don't think we missed anything. Okay, perfect. Now, let's come to the so right click on the host project and then click add, and then there is orchestration support. So we are going to use Docker Compose, click OK, and target OS is Linux. So what this does is it will create a Docker Compose file for you, and also creates the Docker file for you. So you can actually go and see the Docker file here. And in the Docker file, you will see you're exposing port 80 and 443. It's important because we are going to target port 80 when we create the compose file. And do the same in all the other two projects. So go to add, and then do container orchestration support, and then choose Docker Compose and Linux. Now the final web project. So web, add, and container orchestration support. So we now added all the three projects to as services in the Docker Compose, and each project will have a Docker file. Okay, so this is all we needed. Now let's fix the Docker Compose. So I have created the Docker Compose here. Just copy it and override it. The only thing which is new is I actually changed the namings to web, identity server, and HTTP APIs because the dots are not supported in the service names. And I have added also a port binding. So I binded port 9005 to 80, and that is binding the Docker web, that is binding the web project, and then 9006 is binding the identity server, and then 9007 is binding the HTTP API. And for container ports, we are always targeting 80. And the build context is set to the Docker file which is created. And now, if there is no error, we can just move to building the Docker Compose. So to build Docker Compose, come to the directory and say Docker Compose build. So it says, okay, so we didn't fix the names in the override. So it says the dot is not allowed in the, so you just go and fix the overrides as well. Okay, now it should build. Yes, so depending upon your internet connection, this can vary because initially it has to download the Docker containers and then build on top of these containers. So if you really want to know what's going on, just check the Docker file. It has to initially get the base image and then build with the SDK image. So that is what is happening right now. For me, the base image is already downloaded, so it can happen a little bit faster. But I'm not exactly sure how it will work in your machine. It might take a while. Be patient and then let the build process finish. We are building the HTTP API project. The restore is running for a while now. Okay, we are building the identity server now. Okay, we are in the publish step, so it's almost finished. And also, the first build is the longest one. So the next builds are usually cached, so they happen faster. Okay, so I will first open Docker desktop to see the images. If we sort by status, images. Yes, so it just created Docker, ABP Docker HTTP host was just created 1 minute ago. It's the same for the identity server and web. So the images are there. Let's deploy it. To deploy, you just type docker stack deploy the compose file and the name for the stack. So the services are created. Okay, we have our services running. Okay, so if you look at here, the port 9007 is pointing to 80, 9006 is pointing to 80, and then 9005 is pointing to 80. So we have the binding seems to work. Let's check it out if it actually works. Okay, we couldn't see the binding happening. So what are we going to do now? So we just have to figure out how to see the logs for these containers. So the one way to check the logs is to print the logs. To the console, even in the release mode. So with this, we will see what the error is and why it fails. So So this removes the package. Now let's build the app again because we modified some stuff there. We changed the program.cs. This time it will only build only the essential stuff, so it will not build the whole thing. So I'm thinking it should finish up faster. Okay, and now let's deploy it again and see what happens. So if you go to the containers and then sort by status, you will see the HTTP API Docker and the app is running properly. So let's do the same again. Web is also running properly. So it should actually, it's not launching. I think it's a problem with the, Docker desktop. Maybe I will restart the desktop. Starting. Let's wait for it to start, and it's also it will automatically start all the containers. Wait for the containers to start. Okay, so yeah, now it started working. And API, yes. So yeah, my local Docker container is starting to respond. You can see the logs here. Let's log into the web app first and see the logs. Okay. This is the web app. Login. It should redirect to 9006 and okay, so everything works. We can see the users, the API retrieves information. Okay, the logout also works. So the same site cookie problem is solved and everything is hosted right now in the Docker machine, running in local ports. If you want to see the stack, so ABP Docker has 3 services running and it's running in the orchestration mode Swarm. And you can see here that the replication is one service is for Docker HTTP API, one service is for identity server, and one service is for web. So we can actually change the number of replicas you want, and you can add another machine to the Docker Swarm mode, and you can keep adding any number of machines and keep adding any number of replicas and scale as much as you want. Yes, I will add the blog post to the video, and also embed the video in the blog post. If you have any questions, feel free to add a comment, and I will also add a repository of the code I have used, and I will add the repository at the bottom of the blog post, and I will also add the repository in the YouTube description. That's pretty much it for this video. I will meet you guys in another video. Bye bye.